And I also give people a chance to ask questions, if you have any.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Ajahn Achalo, for the insightful teaching. We shall now open the floor for questions and answers. Brothers and sisters, please mindfully raise your hands and wait for us to bring you the mic before asking your questions. Does anyone have any questions? Any show of hands?
Anyone want to meditate for 45 more minutes?
All questions are welcome.
Vandami Bandi, good evening, Ajahn. Apologize, I just arrived actually, so I missed most of the talk. I came after my work. So I'll ask a question that is not from the talk itself. Yeah. I had a question earlier about study versus practice. And I know this is a common question, I guess, that gets asked a lot. I guess it relates to the final part of your sharing that you talked about knowing when is the right time to hold on, and for the moment you might need to hold on rather than let go first. I guess my question is more like, sorry, let me catch my breath a little bit. My question is more like, when we study the Dhamma, when we look at certain suttas or maybe Abhidhamma concepts, there might be some concepts or some teachings that might not apply yet, or might not apply directly yet. And so for some of those concepts, it might be theory at first. Right? And so I guess my question is, how much of that do we need to, how much of the not yet applied, I guess, concepts do we need to hold on to for now? And if that makes sense. Yeah.
So this is a theme, an issue that comes up even in different Buddhist traditions. So and even like someone like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, so with the tradition of studying for 12 or 14 or 16 years to be a geshe, that's how extreme it can become. And he says, there are so many delusions. This is why you need so much wisdom to counter all the delusions. So 16 years of study, not much meditation yet. And then you've got Ajahn Chah when the Western monks for the rainy season, he said, give me your books, lock them in the cupboard, no reading at all. And then in the Tibetan tradition, you have, 3 years, 3 months, 3 days, off to your cave. So we have this phenomenon. I think, obviously, some people are more academic or intellectual in their nature. And if it is your character that you're going to be thinking a lot anyway, or you're going to be studying something, then better to study the Dhamma. Right? But for myself, coming from the practice tradition, I feel that the 3 cardinal suttas, so the Dhammacakka Sutta, 8 Paths, 4 Noble Truths, the way to contemplate anatta, of the mind-body phenomenon, in the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta, the Aditta Pariyaya Sutta, the 3rd sermon about the dukkha characteristic of grasping at this, those 3, plus the Anapanasati Sutta, the 4 foundations of mindfulness sutta, and the Metta Sutta, 6 suttas, I personally feel is enough. I personally feel you have everything you need there to liberate your mind, if that's what you really want to do. But people are attached to thinking, and people do think a lot, and people do like to speculate. So I guess it's a matter of, what's the middle way with it? So in terms of like studying things which don't quite seem relevant to you, that you think you might need to grasp on for the future, I wouldn't recommend that. I would generally recommend something that seems relevant to now. Particularly with the Abhidhamma. I don't want to get in trouble with the Abhidhamma scholars, but I think I think it's good to, because they can be really mean, those Abhidhamma scholars. No, I'm speaking from experience. Basically, if Lord Buddha gave a set of teachings to beings in heaven, they have a different experience of the five khandhas to us. And he was speaking to beings with, subtle faculties. And so for myself, I wouldn't make the assumption that the teachings that the Buddha gave to the devas in heaven are relevant to me necessarily. I would assume that the Dharma discourses that were taught to human beings are going to be the most applicable. So, and then the ones which are particularly addressed to practitioners with regards to how to liberate their mind, if that's what you're interested in. Because the sutras contain an enormous amount of information, how to run businesses, how to run a family, all sorts of things, advice for kings. But if you want to get out of samsara, those ones particularly related to practice that end with the verse and at the end of the teaching so and so is liberated, those are the ones that personally I find very interesting.
I have a follow-up. I recalled something to add.
Yeah.
So something interesting that I found, at least from my own experience, this sometimes surprises me, sometimes not, is we don't know, sometimes we don't know that teaching is applicable or relevant,
right.
And it's sometimes surprising when it does become relevant. So sometimes you have learned this sutta in the back of your head, and then you don't think about it much, and then when you encounter something, it comes to your mind, oh, actually this sutta applies very well in this situation. So this is something I find from experience, and when I do encounter such situations, of course I guess I'm pleasantly surprised. Wow, how comprehensive, how profound the Dharma could be. And then that background study helps to bring to mind something that's useful for the situation. So this sometimes happens, and I guess that's something from my experience that I find interesting.
So the question I have for you now then is, do you have a daily formal sitting practice?
Working on it.
Because Dharma Vicaya is one of the 7 factors of enlightenment. Okay, so it's wholesome. But it's in the 7 factors of enlightenment, another wonderful list, right? Sati, Samadhi. So too much discursive thinking tends to mean weak sati and not much samadhi. So you can have a lot of wholesome thoughts, it's a skillful speculation, but even what you're saying when you meet with this challenge in life is after the fact. Oh yeah, that teaching the Buddha said seems to apply to this. The way I understand Lord Buddha's teachings, the purpose of them, they're a map. They're not the journey. So you can look at every map on Google Maps. It's not going to tell you your next footstep, right? And what I personally think we need to be looking at is, where am I now? What's my journey? What's the next step? What's the step after that? And when you come to a crossroads or a point where the path isn't clear, then you might want to look at some other maps, right? But the basic map is you should be meditating daily. Samma sati, samma samadhi. And when we don't yet have much experience of a peaceful mind, we don't understand the value of it, because we haven't experienced it much yet. When you do having some experience of a peaceful mind, I don't know, for myself there's just always such a feeling of relief, that when the mind is able to put down thoughts, it's just this, and then however long the mind stays peaceful, delicious tranquility, rapture, serenity, deep feeling of contentedness and peace. When the mind moves from that and starts to think, there's always such gratitude for the beauty of a peaceful mind. And so naturally for myself, I hold that quite high as a Dhamma worth pursuing. But I'm coming from the meditation tradition, so we are supposed to put an emphasis on formal meditation. And I know I can only say from my 30 years of my own meditation experiences that I probably think 30% of what I used to. So I have 70% less noise in my mind. And once a fortnight I answer questions on Zoom, and I sometimes before I do it, there's a part of me who's kind of like, oh God, I have to do all that thinking and all that speaking. It's like there's a bunch of threads, and I'll have to pick them all up and weave them into a design that people can understand. But we've been meditation monks. We've trained ourselves to just leave the threads as threads, right? And a thought is a thought, a feeling is a feeling. Don't have to make a big story. But obviously it's valuable to answer people's Dhamma questions and to be able to know how to use thought. So now, my own experience now is like, I can think, or not, a lot of the time. And if I want to think, I can think in a focused direction about what I want to think about. So that, to me, is the value of mindfulness and concentration with Samma Sankappa, or right thought. It's when they're balanced, it's like, okay, I can use thought now. I can use speech. I'm not sometimes there can be a negative reaction or some neurosis. I'm not completely beyond distractive thoughts. But in general, compared to 30 years ago, there's a lot more dexterity around and focus around using thought. And then one of the value of why I'm trying to encourage people to meditate morning, afternoon, and evening is like, it was such a challenge as a junior monk to be with the meditation object. So much restlessness and so much like, just to give you an example, because it's nice to have something to compare to. When I was a novice at Wat Nanachat, I used to jump over the back wall and go for a jog. It was just right. The only people that saw me were the buffaloes. You can't do it now because there's houses there, but there wasn't then. I was 23, right? Jump over the wall. No shoes, no inner clothing. Painful actually, but just to get the restlessness out, you know. And then, okay, jump back over the wall. Okay, go to the evening chanting. And so there was a lot of restlessness, a lot of energy. That's normal for a young man, right? And painful thoughts and fantasies of what you want to do, what you don't want to do, why you're angry at him, why you're offended, why you're hurt. It's so painful to have to be with it, without distraction. But now, generally speaking, because I meditate every morning, every afternoon, every evening, every day for a long time, now when I wake up in the morning, I'm aware of my first in-breath, without trying. And when I go to the bathroom, even if I'm half asleep and a bit groggy, I can feel the feelings at the bottom of my feet. Because of all of the sessions of walking meditation, all of the sessions of breath meditation, all of them come back to the object, come back to the object, come back to the object. Now the mind is vaguely with the object most of the time and more with the object in formal meditation, but the object never gets too far away. But that result only comes comes from the consistency. So if you want an extraordinary result, you do have to sow an extraordinary cause. And I'm so grateful now. I can see the benefit of all that effort. Oh wow, it actually really does work. And the mind is more trained now, more malleable. But if we don't get around to training it to be with the breath, for example, or a wholesome meditation object, the thoughts will. I mean, I suppose if a person is on a great disciple path, like if you want to be Sariputta, I don't know what your personal aspiration is, but if you want to be a chief disciple equal to wisdom as a Buddha, then maybe what you're saying is, can I study these dhammas so that they might be relevant in the future? Okay, Sariputta. I think that's also what the Tibetan monks are doing when they study for 18 years. I once attended the Dalai Lama's teachings, and he was talking about qualities that bodhisattvas need to develop. One of them is extraordinary intelligence. I think in the Pali it would be the analytical knowledges. So if you want to be the Arahant with the analytical knowledges and the miracle of teaching, okay, you study the whole Pitaka. You do need to understand that you are adding a few more thousand lives to your path before you get liberated. So we have to think it through. Now, if you want to be a chief disciple of Buddha, equal in wisdom to the Buddha, sadhu. If you want to be an Arahant with analytical knowledge, the miracle of teaching, sadhu. Go ahead. But if you're feeling a bit weary, and you think it might be nice to be liberated from samsara, then you need your samma sati, samma samadhi, and you need your meditation.
Dexterity is a great word. Sadhu Bhante. Thank you.
Thank you for the sharing tonight, Ajahn.
Welcome.
So I basically found out something that's really relevant to the current struggles I'm going through, and that's basically on emotional regulation. And I think most of the time when we're feeling angry, when things are not good, we tend to react a lot faster than we actually respond to the situation. For example, when we're really angry and we're in pain, we're in a lot of frustration and we can't take it anymore. So the first thing that we do, and that I tend to do a lot, is to lash out my anger by yelling at people and probably even resorting things with violence. And from the realization of that is that they are the short-term benefits but long-term consequences, in which you can feel comfortable for a short period of time, so like taking one step forward, and in the long term you're actually going 2 steps backwards, because after a while you have this sense of regret that I shouldn't have done this, and it was so stupid of me to do this, by yelling out of nowhere and by resorting things into violence, and I'm actually digging myself an even deeper hole. And I believe my question for tonight would be, are there any ways that you can train your mindfulness so that you can let your anger go and moving on without resorting things with anger and with aggression and violence?
Yes. So you have the 3 root kilesas, the greed, the hatred, and the delusion. Generally speaking, different beings will have more of one. So, and the Buddha explains that if you have more greed, for example, you're supposed to do more body contemplation, the nature of the body, and also having a look at what he described as the loathsome aspect of the body. So for people who are obsessed with smooth, beautiful skin or lovely hair, shapes, then Lord Buddha is suggesting you need to think about the blood and the bones and the excrement and the pus. So the other things are also there. For people who have a lot of anger and aversion, he prescribes loving kindness meditation. So it's like, and the thing is, if we have a lot of anything, then we need to apply a lot of the antidote. The problem is, greed types tend to not like body contemplation, and aversion types tend to not like loving kindness metta meditation. And this is where we have to trust Lord Buddha. He's the doctor, you have an ailment, and he's saying this is the medicine. So we have to take the medicine. So if you know you have this deep tendency to anger, then when you come to do your daily meditation, you have to do 10 or 15 minutes of loving kindness meditation at the beginning of the meditation. And if you come and you sit there and you're feeling some remorse about something you did last night or yesterday or last week, right in that moment you're a being who has suffering. So you have to start with that. May I be well, may I be happy, may I be well, may I be happy. And you just do that until that feeling goes away. And then you include other people. We normally start with someone for whom it's easy to feel loving kindness towards, a parent or a teacher or a mentor who we actually like. We bring that person to mind, but once again, breathing in, may I be well, breathing out, may that person be well, breathing in, may I be well, breathing out, may that person be well. And then you should notice that when your mind is having those thoughts of loving kindness, that aversion is not present in that moment. And this is like chinks in the armor. It's like periods of time where there isn't irritation and aversion. Periods of time where the antidote is present instead. And then what also tends to happen, Luang Por Anand, my main teacher in Thailand, he does recommend cultivating loving kindness as a support to the development of mindfulness, because what happens is once your mind becomes a bit more sensitized to kindness, tenderness, gentleness, is you'll notice the angry thought faster, because it's very different. If we're habituated to it and it's very frequent in our mind, we might not notice it until afterwards. But if you have the experience of a different mind state for periods of time, then you'll notice when it's beginning, and then hopefully you might need other tools. If you go to anger management classes, like some things that's like skillful distraction, or just leave the house, go for a jog, or many things. Go to another room, count to 10. You're still angry, go for a walk. It's like separate yourself from the thing that you're reacting to. Various skills that you can develop. But loving kindness meditation is very powerful. But like anything, we have to be diligent and disciplined and consistent with it, and then it becomes truly powerful. So if we only do it sometimes, the anger is going to be more powerful. But you have the tool, you have the hardware, you have the software. I'm giving you the package, free. Download it, upload it, but then you have to do it. Yeah, and sometimes we don't want to sit because we don't. A lot of modern people have self-aversion, ill will, self-loathing. We don't want to sit because we hate ourselves. We don't want to sit because it's painful. And but we can actually do something about that. We can decide to care, and we can decide to not do that. It's not a skillful response. So we have to decide to care and forgive the past, start again in each new moment. It's a process. But yes, frequent loving kindness meditation.
Thank you, Ajahn.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you very much, Ajahn. Would Ajahn be open to taking one more last question from the floor? Okay, maybe one last question.
Good evening, Bante. My question is, how do you prepare to die, especially the moment you're dying? And when I've read books that say that Lord Buddha went from first jhana up to ninth arupa jhana, came back to first and then fourth, but we are lay people. Thank you.
Yes, and he was an arahant. So there was already a part of his mind established in Nibbana. So the best way to die mindfully is to have lived a mindful life. So it's like you're not going to be able to get it together in your last moments if you haven't been putting some effort into getting it together before that. So just what I'm saying, the frequent and consistent practice with meditation objects, establishing a quality of mindfulness that sees the body as a body, feelings as feelings, so that during the dying process, that's
we
the body.
We just do the work as it is, be here and now.
That's right. But supported with, hopefully, some samadhi.
What happens when you are around people who don't have Dharma? They do not know what to do. In the Tibetan Book of Death, they actually place the dying person 3 days in a quiet room, and they serve food outside the room. That's what I read in the book.
But you should be surrounded by nice Buddhas. You have a whole room full of them, isn't it?
Not every member of my family is
not
practicing Dharma.
So I think you have to tell people how you want to die. You have to lay down the law. It's my death. As I said to my father when I was 14 years old, and he was telling me what subjects to study in high school. I said, it's my alive! And I guess now it's my death coming up next. But we can tell people that I remember I was helping one lady to die mindfully in Singapore. One of her friends is here. And she was such a lovely lady. All of her sisters and all of her friends loved her so much. She was dying of cancer. But they were coming in and holding her and crying. Oh, I love you so much. Oh, I'm going to miss you. And because I was invited by the family to be there, I felt I had permission to be there. So I actually scolded them. I said, I don't scold people very much, only if I care for them. So anyway, I cared for this lady. And I said to her, you love her because she was a kind person, she was a generous person, and she supported you, she was there for you in various ways. This is not the way to show your gratitude to her. Filling her with your selfish sadness. Now is your time to give her good energy. So you need to cry fine, outside. Don't you dare cry in front of her. You come in here, you meditate, you chant, you wish her well, you dedicate merit to her. When you feel sad and feel sorry for yourself, you go outside. And they did. And then we started having a morning chanting session, an afternoon chanting session, and evening chanting session. And this lady, she could still move her eyelids, she couldn't do anything else. And I actually had a bit of a sense that she wanted some quiet time. And I asked her, do you want your relatives to chant for you? And she was like, and I said she would like some quiet time. And the relative says, no, we're going to chant. And I had to say to her, I'm sorry. But they needed to do something skillful. And then after that chanting session, she did pass away peacefully. And I believe she was, according to some people that I can consult, she was born as a deva. So yeah, sometimes you have to set boundaries, what will be helpful around you, what won't be helpful around you. And there is a thing called a living will. Like you can write in your will certain parameters around what to do when you're dying. But you also have to let people know that you have that living will. So that can include things like not non-resuscitation or not intubating, not putting tubes. This is an individual person's choice. You have a choice to say that should you not be able to speak for yourself anymore, you already decided. If you can't get out of the bed, if you can't chew by yourself, if you can't speak for yourself, you already wrote that you don't want them to stick a tube up your nose and keep feeding you. But that's something each person has to take responsibility for before they get to that point. Hopefully it doesn't get to that point. But for many people it does. And then the people around you, what do we do? They tend to want to keep you alive as long as possible. And that's not necessarily the best thing for the mind. So we have to tell people, we have to be brave enough to say, when we get to that point, this is what I want, this is what I don't want. And, when the villagers are passing away in the village where I go for alms round, I start visiting them. They often die at home, the villagers in Thailand, and I will visit them after my alms round. We chant for them, remind them of their putting food in the bowl, katinas, various good things they did. And then I ask the relatives to play Dharma talks, play chanting, and try to prepare them a little bit before they go. But for those people, they would hate to be locked in a room and be alone. So for them, because they've grown up in a village, a very porous social situation where other people's kids are coming over and everyone attends everyone else's events and everybody knows everyone's business, they actually want people around. They would feel very lonely and abandoned without that. So it really depends on, we need to put some thought into how do you want to die. If you want to be left alone for those last 3 days, that's fine.
Thank you.
I want to die in meditation posture. I actually told Ajahn Sampano, a monk at my monastery, that if I was too weak to do that he can tie me to a post, I said. Put me in meditation posture, tie me to a post, tie my forehead to it. And I told them, don't feed, don't put tubes, leave the room, let me die. And I said, but please don't let the ants eat me while I'm dying. That's my one request, because age is a lot of ants, right? So I gave you permission to come in and sweep the ants away from me, and let me die. And he says, can your disciples come and pay respects? I say, no! Just let me die peacefully at that time. So I told the monks at my monastery what I want. So.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, brothers and sisters, for your questions. And thank you, Ajahn, for clarifying our doubts and answering our questions.